Good. I was about to say good afternoon, but it's still morning. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to session 1. I am, of course, Shoyege Panton. I am a program officer for policy analysis and coordination at the Planning Institute of Jamaica, that is the PIOJ. So we're going to get down to business now because, as they said earlier, we have a lot of work to do. And the reason why you're here today is because you, the youth, have a lot of work to do, many works to do, all right? So we want to pull up our sleeve and we want to get to work, and we want this to be a rap session because we want to get together like with co-workers, because we're co-workers in this business of national development, right? Right. So firstly, I want to ask you saw in the previous session where we looked at the video, right? We looked at this video that speaks to multidimensional poverty. Before today, any of you ever heard of, multidimensional poverty and what that means and what that entails? If you have, let me know. What do you know about multidimensional poverty? What is it to you? This young man looks like he wants to answer this question. No?
Good morning. I think it means that it is not only geared towards financial poverty, but also environmental poverty. For example, in the video you showed where some areas were prone to flooding, it also relates to food poverty as well as health poverty. So it doesn't necessarily revolve only around the financial aspect that is normally associated with poverty.
That is absolutely correct. So when we talk about multidimensional poverty, we are looking at different aspects, not only speaking to income and, income and consumption. So we're also looking at health, access to health services. We're looking at education, right? Access to education. And even more so now, when we're talking about multidimensional poverty, we are looking at access to your standard, we're looking at your standard of living, and we're looking at access to potable water, right? Does the water come to your house, or you have to go to a little stream where the water kind of dirty? And that, of course, influences your standard of living. We're talking about whether or not you have electricity, right? We're talking about even more so now in this digital world. We saw what COVID did and how COVID disproportionately affected those who didn't have access to internet, right? So those are some of the things that we're looking at when we're talking about multidimensional poverty. We're talking about multiple dimensions, right? All right. So now that we have that understanding, remember, we get into work, guys. We hope you come and your belly full. You see, we feed you first. We hope your belly full because we are ready and raring to go. All right? So the next thing that I want to ask you is that, so based on our own context in Jamaica, we know our cultural context here in Jamaica. Based on that context, are there any other measures of poverty that you would include beside income? Of course, we saw income, which is the economic aspect of it. Would you include anything other than income, health, and education, and living standards? Is there anything else that you'd want to be included as a part of the multi-dimensional aspect of measuring poverty?
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Noah Lewin Jr., and I'm from the University of the West Indies. I would add employment opportunities to the line of different areas, because if we don't have the means to generate funds, then I guess we would be subjected to low standard of living, basically.
Thank you very much. So yes, essentially your economic empowerment is dependent upon your ability to earn, and your ability to earn is dependent upon your level of education, of course, your training, and access to, of course, those different opportunities. Yes? Am I right? Sound good? Stay with me now, guys. Stay with me, because we're doing work. We're working this thing out.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Kevoy Reed. Another aspect I'd like to add is access to safe, affordable, and efficient transportation services. I think that's another key aspect of measuring poverty as well.
I want everyone to participate.
Absolutely. Because when we think about transportation services, we also have to think about access. There's this word that we throw around, access. Access to healthcare can also mean it's not just that you don't have the money to pay for the healthcare. It can also mean that you're living in a remote rural area and the bridge mashed up from last year and the road full of rut and you just cannot get to the health center when you have an illness. Right? So access to those things, of course, have to be included.
I think the main thing that really measures poverty at its core is something that I don't think many of us really think about, is accessing opportunities. Look at it. Getting the right job, knowing the right people, going to the right organization, going overseas, going to a prestigious university, doing all of those things. Those are getting the right opportunities. And let's face the truth, not many people get the right opportunities here in Jamaica or the region. They are often left out, ridiculed. They are often segregated. So we have to focus on giving everyone the right opportunities because that is a key measure against poverty. And I'm doing that. Follow opportunities for Caribbean youth and ID, I'm doing that. It gives persons jobs, scholarships, internships, fellowships, and also expose you to the region and beyond the region. We're not limited to Jamaica. We're not limited to the Caribbean region. We are phenomenal. We are global. We are fierce. We are not limited to anything. Once we're exposed to opportunities, we are educated and inspired for more. We can change our narrative.
Give the man a round of applause for me, please. Hey, input in, plug, you know. All right, so guys. Oh, so sorry.
Good morning, everyone. So one of the things I realized regarding poverty is that we have Jamaicans here who are undocumented. So they don't have birth certificates, they don't have identifications, they don't have bank accounts, and that plays a big role in how they transition or develop. So in order for them to go to school, they don't have the right documents. For example, I remember back in the days, persons could be admitted in a primary school with immunization records. And so that's how they have gone through primary school. But when it reached the high school and they should get a birth certificate, that becomes a difficulty. And so they don't get to advance. So a lot of us here have been living and growing, but no documentation to prove that we exist.
Thank you very much. And that as well is very important because when we want people to be able to access services, we ask them for TRN and we ask them for birth certificate. And a lot of citizens are unable to access services because of that exactly. Let me just speak to this gentleman and then I'll come right over to you.
All right. What I believe that mental and emotional instability can also relate to poverty, because sometimes as individuals, if we're not mentally and emotionally stable, you might see the opportunity in front of you and do not know how to grasp it. If you're not able to build yourself, build your character, because your emotional stability has a lot to do with your character, and you choosing to go on a path that is right for you. Many times you would have persons who are in the executive world who are emotionally and mentally unstable, and as such, they have not attained the right life that they would want to be. And they too become hurters, or they become somewhat the bridge that isn't allowing person to be who they want to be. They become the factors for other persons who want to go forward. So I believe that without you having a proper self-worth, proper image of yourself, no matter the opportunity that might come about, you will not be able to grasp it, and that will cause us to stay in poverty.
Absolutely, and that is one of the main generators of intergenerational poverty, because what we have is sometimes persons who, as he said, you lack self-esteem and that self-will to go beyond
student, and I was told an experience of one of my classmates. She is a mother to a beautiful boy, and based on what she experienced in a hospital as a young lady, she was a teen pregnant at the time, right? Because she's a teen, the stigma attached to teen pregnancy caused her to not be able to get the respectful and caring healthcare that she should have gotten. So I believe that if there are not just more facilities garnered to healthcare for young teenage mothers, or say different healthcare problems that young people would face, but just professionals, health professionals in general, having a whole change in mindset, being trained how to deal with these problems, because we live in a society where we like to make up our minds about people, right? We're Jamaican people, that's the reality. So I think we should focus on that as well.
Absolutely, and I believe there is also, other than just the physical care that mother would need, the support, the psychosocial support that she would need in that regard as well.
Miss, when you said financial and human resources, would that include educational personnel, for example, teachers? Because while one of the major issues is access, they also lack the education that they would need to properly carry out these roles. So training for whoever we are putting inside of the spaces with the youth. So I believe, or I think that we should add financial, education, and human resources, because that is a major point.
All right, thank you. So you want to include capacity building for the persons who are engaging with youth.
Good morning. So for the part about caring in the health philosophy, basically, nowadays where I'm seeing where we don't really have enough trust in our doctors and psychologists, based on different aspects of youths that are being in teenage and pregnancy, who are like HIV positive or different aspect. When persons do in the medical field find out about those stuff and they're seeking help, but they are not really treated properly, they scorn them try to look at them a different way, and that lead to another aspect of mental health where the different person want to kill themselves, they're not worthy, God, why me, God, why this? So these are things that are facing our youth in all aspects of life.
Absolutely, and I feel that empathy, training in empathy is what we need to include, capacity building in empathy, and just, okay, so you have the professional knowledge in healthcare, but also how do you approach your clients, right? So that needs to be included as well.
Right. I love that you just mentioned that, because that touches on my point as well. In light of what was just said, I definitely think it's not about having these spaces and these facilities available, but also looking at from the professional perspective, the quality of the care that's being provided. So matters of maintaining codes of ethics, so things read confidentiality, I find is very important, and also receiving training and regular evaluations on things like customer service, because Jamaica has a huge customer service issue where sometimes you go somewhere, you are struggling, it has taken you a lot of building up courage to actually make this step, and you go and you're not treated with respect, you're brushed off, you have a negative experience in a place where you're supposed to feel safe. So I definitely think that investment needs to be made into not only providing mental health and psychosocial support services for young people, but also looking at the professionals and ensuring that they are competent in the sense where they are providing the most quality care for patients, clients, customers, so that they feel safe and that they're able to open up and actually internalize and receive the treatment that they need.
Absolutely. Excellent point. Thank you. A point to note, little housekeeping. Guys, I lost my phone. You see it? Oh, great. All right. So we're good to go. All right. So the next one. There's a hand over there. I'm going to just read the next one and then I come to you. You can still make your point. All right. So we also want to increase. Okay. So we spoke about access to youth-focused health centers. So we also want to liaise with government and private sector to provide nutrition screening and education for teachers, students, and young people. Right? Oh, Mr. Video Man, can you scroll up for me so the delegates can see what is on screen? All right, so let me read it again for you. It is, we would liaise with government and private sector. So we're talking about partnerships at this time. We're talking about a private and public sector partnership to provide nutrition screening and education for teachers, students, and young people. All right? I'm going to go to the young man to allow him to make his point, and then I'll come across to everybody else.
Okay, so first and foremost, good morning. My name is Jaheem Graham. I am the current founder of an upcoming organization called Kotsir, and we're aiming to foster creativity in youths first and foremost, but also build creative solutions to many problems that we face in the social issue space. And if you would love to follow us along that journey, you can find us on Instagram at Kotsir, spelled K-A-T-Z-I-E-R CO. But in the space of resolving or finding creative solutions to these problems, we were interested in creating a mental health resource platform called Icarus. And one of the things that we discovered as we were going along that is that we can't just focus on the teachers and the students alone. And I think a lot of us can agree that mental health does start in the home. A lot of the issues that we find stem from how you were raised or your experience with your parents. And I think that's a big focus that we should have, because not only do the teachers need to know how to handle the students or deal with students with mental health issues, but as we always say in Jamaica, prevention is better than cure. And I think that ultimately we should be looking into educating our parents as well on how to properly handle these issues, how to practice more safe methods of imparting lessons, for example, that can result in less youths growing up with these issues in the long term, because depression or anxiety, all of these things stems from how you were raised. And I think if we can find a way to educate our parents as well on how they can be better parents, really, that would be a very integral component of resolving this issue in the long term.
Thank you very much. Excellent point. So we're moving on now to outcome 2, and that has to do with world-class education and training. All right. So the first thing that before I move on, everybody all right? Everybody okay with everything? We're working? We're belly full? All right, let's go. All right. So on the matter of world-class education and training, we want to look at, of course, greater alignment of local educational course offerings with the demands of the international job market. What do you think about that? Course offerings that is in alignment with the international job market. How no so silent and you can't tell me if you no plan for study and then you no run off. We know it go.
I was saying I agree, because especially now when we're seeing in this contemporary age where jobs are demanding the greater need for soft skills, I think our focus should be not unnecessarily moving away from traditional subjects like your math, your English, your science, but what we should do is try to integrate the introduction of these soft skills. So for example, like public speaking, things like how to present to an audience, things like how to develop a business. For example, this conference that we're doing now, I think we should integrate sessions in high schools to get students interested in starting businesses of their own, because a lot of them have foundation knowledge, a lot of them have startups, but you know, what is teaching them about science gonna do when they're not interested in science, when you could just use the skills that they have to tell them, hey, you can do this, just develop this business. You know, we need something in place to allow children or allow students to know that their worth is not tied to being great at one subject.
Absolutely.
So, good morning, everybody. My name is Kimberly Black. With number one, we have a director. Her name is Christine Gore. She introduced us and other persons in the inner city who doesn't have finance to pay for school to an online course called Alice Courses. So you can do the course online and then you pay for the certificate. So that's the only payment you will make.
All right, thanks. You'll have to share those details with us at the end of the session, because I'm sure other persons are interested, so you can share that with us at the end of the session. I have some eager hands over here.
So I wanted to add to the young man over there. So based on the society that I'm seeing, where maths and English and all of those different subjects are mostly critical, but I think that training and different aspect of person having more opportunities to go overseas and support. So I went to an inner city school. I'm seeing where used to went to inner city school, and I'm seeing where persons who are not so quick at the maths and the English, they are not taught about different training. They are not getting the support from the Ministry of Education. They are not getting the support of the whole ministry, where they can say, okay, I can come to school and learn a trade. I can come to school and know how to cook. I can come to school and know how to advance being public speaker, being so much that we can. There's some school you don't have those different programs. Some school don't really have the help, and it lead on the student themselves to go out and try to find the necessary help. And also some of them really, they don't have the necessary help, so they drop out of school and being criminals or being different stuff. And we need to find a solution. We need to find a way and fill those gaps so it don't really happen.
I think so too. So go ahead, and then I'll make my point after.
So good morning, everyone. So we must, there's, to add what the two young gentlemen were saying, there's a stigma in Jamaica that most jobs, they not make you no money. So Jamaicans, they're all about the cultural, let's not traditional jobs like nurses and teachers and stuff. They believe that, that's the only thing where can make you money. So courses from, the international scene, I believe it's not necessarily accepted. Things like animation and, the different diverse courses, they don't really accept it because they believe, I just teach and make your money, and I just this and make your money, that not making no money. So like lawyers and stuff like that, they don't really accept it.
That is very true. But you know what I learned recently? I learned this very interesting term called, we know about brain drain, but I learned this very interesting term called brain gain. So when we talk about alignment of local courses to the international market, if a lot of persons, because they're unable to perhaps access certain employment opportunities here, they go overseas. We know that is the truth, right? And we call it brain drain. But what happens, interestingly, is that we also have a brain gain where persons go overseas overseas and they learn what happens, they learn the structure of things, they learn how to do things, and they come back and there's that knowledge transfer. And that is how we benefit from a brain drain turning into a what? Brain? All right.
Morning again. I think he kind of took my point right away just now. Greater alignment of local education, of course, offerings that demands of international job market. It has the potential to do both good and bad, as mentioned. So if we align the resources to international demands, we are essentially preparing our persons to go overseas and they can integrate and assimilate easily. The downside to this now as well is that if we're equipping our local workers with all the resources and the skills just to enter an international job market, we're essentially pumping local resources to essentially amplify and build another country. Because I'm telling you, if, for example, we see it here in healthcare as well as the teaching profession, if we're equipping our teachers, our doctors, our nurses with all of the qualifications and the resources to integrate in an international market, most of them don't come back. It's just fact.
All right, so last point on this one, because we still have quite a bit to get through.
Thank you. All right, so for me, this really hit home as an agricultural student. If, for example, the government was to place greater focus on educating the youths about more advanced agricultural practices, this could, encourage more young people to get into agriculture, which, is a very fundamental part of our society. What am I saying? It's not just pickaxe to lift up dirt anymore. We have new things like drones that we can use to, water the plants or spray chemicals, which in itself, a lot of our forefathers or even our parents have gotten ill as a direct result of, the different pesticides and herbicides that they are exposed to on a daily basis when they're planting. So I think emphasis should be placed on this, naturally, because it's not just the pickaxe to lift up the dirt anymore. We have new technologies, new agricultural practices, climate-smart agricultural practices that can, give us great reward, great yield in terms of produce, and yeah.
Absolutely, excellent point. And I know we're moving towards hydroponics, which is a pretty buzzword all around, and a lot of persons are learning about hydroponics. But we also have things like use of robots in agriculture, temperature and moisture sensors. We're talking about GPS technology and all of that in agriculture. So I hope we're capturing that to be a part of the discussion. Let me just go ahead and read into the next sentence, which looks at developing a central platform or site for the publication of private and public sector education scholarships. All in favor, say aye. All right, so we're getting through that one pretty quickly, and we also want to promote youth entrepreneurship in schools through clubs and school curriculums as a viable career options. I know there's always a lot of talk about financial education in schools, but we're also moving now to entrepreneurship being taught in schools. Anybody used to sell sweetie and bam bam when them in a high school and them tell them, say, no, don't do it against the rules. So we're not necessarily saying start up a big sweetie bam bam tuck shop business in the people in classroom, but we are talking about learning about how to manage a business as an option to you, to a means of income, right? So there was a point somewhere.
Good morning. My name is Jesse Aarons, and I'd like to touch a little bit on the point that he made about agriculture and it not being recognized. And similarly, the city and guild subjects that students are now pushed to do, I realize that more often than not in Jamaica, those subjects are not very recognized by the companies that they can try to work for. Most of these companies will pay more attention to the CSEC subjects and disregard all the city and guild subjects that the students will work hard to pass. And I believe that raising awareness of the significance and relevance of city and guilds and its subjects is a very important aspect and something that we should also try to focus on. And yeah, that's...
Excellent point. You can go ahead and applaud him if you'd like to.
To build on the point of agriculture, I think it's important to integrate these new technologies and innovations into this sector. But it's also important to keep the knowledge that we had, the traditional knowledge, all the years that the farmers learned and the crops and everything that they know. We can't just put it out of the window. And same goes for other sectors. We have a large data set of what works, what doesn't work. So we need to remember these things when incorporating the new technologies and the new innovations to see how we can actually adapt and make something successful.
Absolutely. Integrating indigenous knowledge systems with future technologies is an important aspect because we're building on what we're not reinventing the wheel, we're building on what we already know. All right? So the next point that we have is to expand the reach of career fairs to underserved communities and rural areas. So we're talking about all career fairs, or we're saying rather that all career fairs should also direct attention at emerging sectors and jobs and the related academic requirements. How we feel about that? And I think one thing that we have to think about in this point is when we say underserved communities, we have to plug that gap. We have to kind of do some work to ensure that those underserved communities get served, because we are here in the business of leaving no one behind.
My point was old because you can't help. My point was related to number 4. Good morning, everyone. I'm Daniel Jordan. I'm a youth advocate with UNICEF. It's on my shirt, so you can see it. I think one of the things that schools need to do is utilize the fact that students are natural hustlers. I feel as if we're always going into schools and pushing these entrepreneurial courses to the students and these, 30-minute to 2-hour seminars talking about, oh my gosh, this is what you need to do. Like, they know. They're more than aware on how to run a business because of their own personal struggles. Like, they didn't have a choice but to learn how to run a business. So I think it's not just teaching them how to run the business, but taking advantage of the fact that they already know how to do it. Because you're giving them the tools that they already know how to use, but it's giving them the tools to do it within the school space. Because now it's, quote unquote illegal within the school space. So, for example, you have a problem with hair, how students do their hair in schools. So Janet is a student and she does hair on the side. Send the students to Janet to go get her hair done, who is also a student, kind of just instead of undermining students who already know how to be independent in terms of running their own business. It's utilizing them.
All right, you can visit Janet's studio outside of school hours, right? Right, absolutely. And I think in terms of entrepreneurship in schools, that what we're really talking about, because I heard something, or I saw it in the news recently, where they said there's a difference between a hustler and a business owner, right? So what we know a lot of hustlers, and they're largely a part of the informal economy, and we want to have them, of course, we want to teach them how to, start up, do a business plan, because you need a business plan to access credit, and how to, access grants, find grant funding and that sort of thing. So it's a part of all of that being included in that particular point. All right? So, moving on now, we're looking at recommendations from previous Ready, Set, Great conferences emphasizing the need for improvements to the educational sector to include the expansion of youth mentorship programs that offer real opportunities for mentoring and skill development. We're looking at learning opportunities for students with special needs and learning disabilities, and we're also looking at tertiary level programs aligned to emerging trends and requirements for sustainability and resilience to future shocks and crises. All right, so we're good to go on that. Are there is there anything that you'd like to add on those points?
Not on that point specifically, but on the previous point where you mentioned the career fair, I think that is important, but also we need to address the issue that not all young people know to put together a good resume, a good cover letter, or put themselves in a professional capacity, because they probably weren't taught that in schools. They don't know what to do. We just expect them to know what to do, but they don't really know what to do. So in addition to career fairs, I've realized that Grenada have been doing an excellent initiative for youth where they go around different schools and help them, all day trainings, help them to put together a good cover letter, a good resume, bring themselves as professionals in the space, because yes, you're young people, but you're also a professional in the space. And how can we give you the tools and the resources to draft and put you in that space? So we need to also consider those factors when we're talking about career fairs and those things, as well as for underdeserved youths, rather.
All right. So we also need to accelerate efforts to promote effective integration of information and communication technologies into formal and informal modes of education. And I think COVID has brought us a wake-up call where we really have to be using digital technologies in the classroom, because we had to during the COVID period. And of course, that disproportionately affected the poor and those who lacked access to ICT devices.
All right, so previous point about how can youths add to the Ministry of Education, I think that our inner city schools are the most critical, and schools that are really not up to standard, where the ministry will pay more attention, like to Immaculate or a Campion or a St. George's. They're more focusing on those top traditional schools. But what about the inner city schools? What about programs that need to be in place for persons who are in inner city who cannot read, who cannot spell, who cannot write? There's some schools, there's no program for those. So they're left behind, and then when the time comes for them to do their CXC, they cannot do it because there's no funding. They're not equipped enough because they're not fast enough like some other students who are in the inner city schools. And I think that the government and also the ministry, they need to pay more attention to our inner city school and try to build them as well.
All right, thank you. I have one point here, and then I head over to that side, or this side, and then that side.
I think when we speak on these things, we need to differentiate between a donation and a development. Because a lot of times, government agencies and non-government agencies tend to go into these communities and they give them something. They say, okay, you guys are struggling in terms of opportunities and outreach. Here's a one-day career fair to serve you guys, and then they leave them. And that's just supposed to help them take themselves out of poverty for the rest of their lives. So we need to recognize that it's I don't want to say it's a generational curse, because a curse kind of seems as if they brought it onto themselves, but it's something that exists throughout generations. So it's like you give them the career fair, but then they're still stuck in a mental and emotional poverty because of what they're accustomed to seeing in regards to their parents and their peers. You give them funding to go to university, but they're within the university space and they feel they have what's that called? What's the word? Imposter syndrome. So it's just like you donate this to them, but you don't develop them holistically as a person. So I think if we're going to speak towards that, we have to speak to the sustained development of the individual that looks to them right now. And it has to do with not just a singular career fair, but then after the career fair, of course, after they've been selected or they've been given the opportunity to advance themselves, it's continuous follow up on them. So whether it be going back to mental health, whether it be them seeing a psychologist on a monthly basis, whether it be them contacting their mentor, not just for a month, and the hype of the mentor is there and they're like, okay, I have a mentor now, and the mentor kind of just disappears after 2 months or so, but it's the mentor continuously checking up on them. Because if you just give them the money or give them the career fair, give it a year maximum, and then they're gonna be back in the same place that they were to begin with.
So continuous support in areas of mentorship. All right. We have a point here.
Right. So on the note of expanding youth mentorship programs, I definitely think it's important for us to do that at a standardized level. So ensuring that, even the more rural or the underserved areas and students, especially from those areas, they have not only like one mentor, but also support networks and groups. Because I find it so interesting to note that a lot of the times, depending on where you are, an environment, it has a key role in determining, the space you stay in or the spaces you want to go in. So some persons really need persons to, not like one person, but a group of persons to continue pushing them to, exchange knowledge and to also grow and develop. So I think that's important. And also for those mentors to link students with opportunities, and also to really and truly just help the persons develop certain skills that are going to boost them and boost their platform and the spaces that they'll be able to enter, such as like public speaking. So I definitely think through acquiring those skills through mentorship and through having support groups, persons will be able to use their circumstances, use where they're coming from, their stories, and they'll also be able to in some instances monetize that through things like branding, through things like content creation and sharing, motivational speaking. So I think that through having stronger youth support spaces, persons will actually be able to grow, build personal brands, and actually be able to grow and develop financially and otherwise from that.
Excellent point. And I know we heard the fireside chat this morning with Scotch Boys, and that was essentially what he said, that he has a mentor and they helped him to they taught him what they know, and they helped him to get into the space and give him exposure.
So for the point that I wanted to comment on, it was point 2, learning opportunities for students with special needs and learning disabilities. I think oftentimes the government says that, we acknowledge that there are certain students in the system that have learning disabilities and we are trying to facilitate them. But I think greater effort and emphasis needs to be placed on actually trying to facilitate them, because as someone in the school system now, I'm a teacher. So I see it all the time where students will come to class and we just slap a label on them and say, the student is rowdy, or the student just don't want to pay attention. But a lot of the times, a lot of them have undiagnosed issues, right? So recently, there was an email sent out by the principal that one of these said students that teachers were just labeling them that they had, them just have behavioral issues, actually had a diagnosis. And when it came up in the staff meeting, everybody was like, so there was no teacher training for this. We don't know how to handle this student. So my response to them was, just because you don't know how to handle the issue, it doesn't mean that we should just put it off, right? So what I suggest that the government should do, or what stakeholders should do in the education system, is get teachers trained to handle these issues, because there are going to be more students students with these challenges, and there are going to be other spaces that they will enter into with not only students but persons living with these real issues and these real problems. And we should all know, not just teachers, but we as professionals should know how to handle these people. So teachers first, and then everybody else, because it's a priority.
I completely, 100% agree. We need persons trained. He mentioned teachers, and we need those specialist teachers. We need more of them, and we also need testing facilities for students.
And just to add to that as well, I believe that mandatory community level mentorship programs, and to tie back to the fears again, should be emphasized by the government, since we know it is such a big deal that is student youth mentorship, just to change the culture of the society and change the youth and societal mindset. Yeah.
I'm gonna pick your brain a little bit. I don't have a lot of time, but that's a very interesting point. And when we talk about mindset, we're talking about values, belief systems, we're talking about culture. And as we know, that's one of the hardest things to change. As a youth delegate, what do you think, or how do you think we can begin this business of changing the mindset, change this business of improving negative beliefs and values of certain subcultures to improve and move forward?
Well, I would think if you keep implementing these, practices to counter them over the years, year after year after year after year, the society will have no choice but to adapt and change. And consequently, as the mindset begins to change, people behave differently, and it be more accepted, yeah.
Based on my opinions, I would say a person's mindset stems from their environment. So if you're continuously around something negative, you're going to adapt that mindset.
I completely agree. Let me just get this point first.
All right, so for point number 1, an idea again. As I said, Christine Gore, she has an organization called the Gore Family Foundation. Where I work at an organization called the Rostam Foundation. And one of the things that we do, as you were mentioning about mindset, we have a lot of youth at risk in our community. And some of them dropped out of school or didn't get any certification. So we partnered with them, and we had a Gore construction internship program. We're planning on deciding if we're going to do phase 3. We'll finish phase 2. And one of the things that we realized, that persons love that program. They also get mentors to mentor them. And once they finish, they would continue with those mentors. They even get jobs. And one of the things that I can truly say for myself, I am an inner city person. I'm an advocate for my community. And once I see an issue, I go out there and I get them to come into the program. And I can say around 20 persons are now in a job through to that Gore Family Foundation. So we're planning on doing phase 3 with them.
All right, so Sparks of Love Foundation, we partner also with the Gore Family Foundation. What we do, because we believe that there are persons who, we talk a lot of theories, but a lot of times we don't do the practical part of it. I was a teacher before, I was an educator, I was also a police officer in the rank and file. And what we do is that we go into the communities, we go into the schools through Sparks of Love, and we create programs. So we are now having an anti-scamming program that we're going into the inner city schools, into the different diasporas, and we're talking to the youngsters about the negative implications of scamming. Because the reality is that we are living in a society that is being captured by negative influences. So as such, yes, we see it and we talk about it, but truth and be told, we know someone who is doing it and we're keeping a blind eye to it, right? So what I always tell persons is that some of the time we might see it in theory, but what are we doing about it? A lot of times we're waiting on the government to do things. And it's as simple and practical like this. We have so many shoes in our closet, and yet we know someone who is not wearing a pair of shoes. It's as simple as that.
Very, very good point. And I think what this tells us is that change needs to happen at every level. It needs to come from the individual level, to the household level, to the community level, to the national level, and then we are in alignment with global goals. Yes? So each and every one of you here today can make a difference. And I want you leaving here today empowered and emboldened to go out there and make a difference in whatever way you can.
And just one last thing. You were saying earlier, about the whole gender, the young men in the society, there's a problem. You can observe that a lot of them, when they reach towards the end of their high school years, they don't know what to do with themselves. And you find them, scamming, committing crimes, all of that. If you tackle this from a young age, from their children, from 4 or 5, with a proper mentorship, year after year after year, beat it into their minds, it just become a part of the culture. It will have a positive effect, even if they do drop out. The options in terms of skill sets, there's so many things that they could do. They're currently limited based on the current culture to things that are not good. And we can change. That can be changed. I don't even think 10 years is enough. 5 years. Because if you start with them now, you catch them from them young, going to high school, it will start to have a rippling effect. Yeah.
Absolutely, because somebody mentioned scamming, and I see where when I was really young, when I was in primary school, I didn't know anything about scamming, chopping, quanging, whatever it is, right? And now in some communities, in some families, there's a culture of scamming. So I think culture in and of itself is hard to change, but it is not impossible, and it can be changed over time through positive reinforcement.
So again, touching on the point that he made about youths and scamming, I believe that a lot of the time they end up resorting to these things because they don't know where else they can go or what else they can do. And so I think that making or spreading awareness about the opportunities that are out there is one of the best ways to prevent this, because even when I was leaving grade 11, I didn't know what I was going to do until I decided, okay, I'm going to try and stick with my school and go to sixth form. And that's part of the reason why I'm here today, because I made a decision to try and stay in school as best as possible. And so pointing out as many opportunities to the youths as possible is one of the best ways to keep them out of the scamming and the guns and the violence and so on. So yeah.
Absolutely. Positive alternatives to scamming, how, employment opportunities and other opportunities that you can be gainfully employed rather than what entails in this subculture of scamming.
Also, I realize a big issue in our society, in the world at large, we tend to focus more on money instead of people, instead of investing in people and taking the time out to influence people to be better. So one of the things that I'm learning in one of my courses that I'm doing now is, as a nurse, you think of yourself as a nurse and as a patient, because you will never get paid to stay up late nights, to constantly get called by a patient over and over again for the same issue. You understand? As a professional, you really will never get enough pay for the things that you do, for stepping outside of your job description to really go the extra mile for another person. You understand? So I think a very important issue we need to address is helping people to understand that it's not just about money. In school we grow up learning the most important asset of a country is the people. No amount of money can buy back a life. You understand? So we need to focus on helping each other and not just making money or building generational wealth.
Absolutely. People-centered development is the focus.
So I have an issue. we are saying that, before I even get into that, it is bad. We know it is bad. What else? Somebody is scamming. You take Braveheart and report them. They go to jail. Let us not forget that our judicial system is in shambles. What reform will they get there? We are only putting them there to say, okay, we are low in violence, okay, we are dealing with the problem of scamming. But what else? I think we need to ask ourselves this question. What will they do afterwards? Because most of the time they go to jail, they become repeat offenders. What are we as a society doing? Those persons who are scamming, they have real, intelligent computer skills. What can we do to allow them to utilize these skills? It is bad. We know it is bad. We get up every day and say scamming is bad. Do not do it. But what else?
Absolutely. So she's speaking to the matter of rehabilitation and repurposing those skills.
Thank you. I am happy that she would have made mention of that. So what we do as a part of our anti-scamming campaign through Sparks of Love is that when we go into the schools, we partner with Heart Trust NTA. So we teach them about different skills, hospitality, housekeeping, and we certify them. Many times we certify them on spot, because you will have a young man who he's good in barbering, but he does not know the channel as it relates to become an effective or certified barber. So we go into the schools through Sparks of Love, partnering with Heart and other entities, and we certify them. We also do mentorship programs where we take persons and we take them overseas through our foundation, and we open up an avenue, a different diaspora to them, and let them understand that life is not just here locally, but you can get other opportunities internationally. As coaches, we do job coaching as well. My wife, who is a part of the foundation, she has a master's degree in human resource management. What she does is she does career coaching for young persons in the inner city, in the schools. So we're not just saying, all right, scamming bad, leave scamming, and then you just go to jail, or you just go not doing anything. We train them. We partner also with security companies. We certify persons as security professionals, and we put them into security jobs. So if you leave school and you're saying that, all right, I want to become a certified security officer, we train you, we certify you through industrial security as a trainer of industrial security for Heart, and then we say, all right, you can either get an opportunity locally or you can get an opportunity internationally. So we're not just teaching you how to fish, but many times we're giving you the fish as well.
Thank you very much. We have one final point and one final question, and then we wrap up this lovely session and this amazing chat that we've been having.
Good afternoon, everyone. With the scammers, I don't think the issue is with lack of opportunity or resources. I think they're just lazy, and they think that it is the trend, and if you scam, you're the boss for every boss and all of that. But where we as teachers come in important now, we get them from an early stage. So we should reshape the entire thing and show them how important the working industry is, and show them that it is important to work for what you want. And we need to just change the image or the view that they have of the education system, the 9-to-5 system. We need to change that view.
Very good point. Very good point. All right, so we want to thank you. We want to thank you for being here today. We want to thank you for just, sharing your points, sharing your thoughts, sharing your brilliance here today. And we want to assure you that the points that you have made will be used and will be put forward as, of course, it's a part of a call to action, of course, to ensure that as best as possible, we can achieve our goal of fulfilling our potential, that Jamaicans, that youth are empowered to fulfill their potential. Thank you so very much for chatting with me today. I hope to be able to, chat with you further on, speak with you aside. We can talk about any other points that you'd like to mention, and just enjoy the rest of the conference. And for the sessions, the master classes that are coming up, ensure you join those and garner a wealth of knowledge to be able to, while you are empowered, you also are able to empower others in your communities and in those around you. All right, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.